Alright everyone, a few days ago I made a video on Lenihan and his article, his data study basically of Twitter, on which he linked some high-profile Antifa members to members of the so-called journalistic community, like groups like The Guardian. Sometimes they would cite as experts people that had not only, possibly clear ties, but literal ties to Antifa members, or Antifa as an ideology or movement. And he got banned off Twitter the other day. I'm not really surprised that he'd get banned off of Twitter. Probably what happened is he probably got mass raided for harassment or something, like, oh my god, they're saying mean stuff about us, and so this is against Twitter's TOS, which, it's not really on Twitter as a site. He's just talking about his own article. It's a data study. I'm thinking to myself, that's funny, Becca Lewis is there. The Data Society report basically did the same thing, and it was actually defamatory. This one appears to at least be credible in sourcing. This appears to be an actual credible, and it's not saying like, oh, these people have ties to Antifa, and therefore evil, bad, and wrong. No, it's just pointing out that there are ties there that are not frequently disclosed. They're hidden. They're kept veiled specifically. Some journalist at CNN doesn't want people to know that they have ties to an anarcho-terrorist organization. It's probably bad for business. It makes it difficult for the network too. A CNN or The Guardian or whatever, BuzzFeed, certainly. I wonder how many connections Salon has to groups like that. I'm sure it's quite a few. Some of these groups don't even, some of them that are being discussed are more on the activistic end anyway. It's like, yes, BuzzFeed, I am sure that it is fair, accurate, and totally politically unbiased reporting. Well, no, of course not. And what I pointed out with Lenin's study, we've got to understand, this is important. Just because you see a bunch of numbers and a web of connection stuff doesn't mean it's necessarily entirely accurate. Sometimes you can see a connection that only appears to be there. It's like with the Data Society report. The problem with the Data Society report's analysis of content creators, of alt-influencers, the alt-right adjacent or whatever, is that it assumed that if two people communicated, that somehow was a strong tie between them in an ideological sense. Or that platforming, and it makes up the newspeak bullshit argument that somehow you are platforming people by debating them. So literally, even by disagreeing with someone, if you're having public discourse, it is still considered for the purposes of that study to be a form of platforming. Well, it's not. That's bullshit. But that's what the Data Society report pushes. Insofar as that's the case, the claim that somebody like Destiny, who simply likes to debate all the time and is actually very far left, the idea that he is alt-right adjacent is laughable. Especially to people that don't like the dude. If you're claiming that I'm alt-right adjacent for having debated Richard Spencer, for having participated in some of the blood sports stuff, which is like, okay, so they happen to have a guest on that's on what you term the far right, which isn't even always the case. They're trying to make the case that Bunty King is far right. And so automatically that's a stronger tie. That makes me more adjacent, or I don't even know exactly. It was kind of dense towards the end. They didn't even use my username when they were in the first paragraph. I still feel angry about that. I'm like, hey, I was pretty cool at that debate. You should have at least give me a reach around if you're going to defame me and call me a Nazi or something, dude. Or dudette. I think she literally lists her pronouns on her Twitter. That's the funny part. But Lenihan gets banned. I'm asking, what's the difference other than the fact that his report is more credible and more well-sourced? Oh, that's right, he's going after people in the legacy media. There you go. See, it's very, very interesting, because if you went to Lenihan's actual Twitter, he's not attacking anyone. He's not attempting to slander anyone. He's just saying, look, this is the connections that we were able to draw. There was one dude, he was the author of the Antifa Handbook. He was cited as several times as an expert in political matters by The Guardian. Well, clearly, that is a connection. They know about who he is, and yet they're overlooking that and presenting him as though he is an unbiased individual when he literally wrote a manifesto on behalf of anarcho-communists. So, yeah, there's at least some credibility here. It would be like if the Data Society report had focused on individuals agreeing with each other in the form of discourse instead of just simply raw connections, their study may have been more accurate. By the way, it would have portrayed a totally different picture of YouTube. That's why they skewed it, by the way, because there wouldn't have been enough connections there to justify saying there was a culture of hate in political YouTube. That's basically what it boils down to. Oh my god, all of those connections begin to dwindle and disappear, and all of a sudden you realize that half of it's all debate and just people having conversations of an apolitical manner. Would have been great if they had created a little categorization system to look at those connections and say how many fit into each category. How many times did I agree versus disagree with people, or was I not even discussing politics? Second time I talked to Spencer, we spent the entire half hour talking about Depeche Mode. So who gives a fuck? But as far as Lenihan goes, as far as I could tell, going through his Twitter at least briefly, I didn't really see anything that he had done that would be against Twitter's TOS. I guess the idea is Twitter now cares about what you do off-site. I guess they looked at the report and freaked out, and they decided, well, oh my god, they're exposing members of the legacy media, so we have to do something about this. So you should definitely read his original report, which is link in the description, I believe, has it. Yeah, you should read the report and spread it around, and we should help platform Lenihan a little bit, because supposedly now he's a wrong thinker. It's wrong think to notice the connections between corporatists, corporate billionaires and millionaires and scumbag corporations, and all of their cronies and offshoots. It's bad. It's wrong to notice that they have connections to this particular organization that at least brands itself as a bunch of anarchists, but the people who lead it, yeah, okay. Yeah, they totally want to redistribute all the wealth. They're not just a bunch of blind, egotistical fascists that really want corporate control and use people like pawns. They say, dress up in this black mask and throw rocks for me. Maybe get thrown in prison, maybe get your head smashed in. I wonder if any of these leaders and organizers actually go out to these rallies, or if they sit in their dimly lit office drinking Gatorade. I have a feeling that it's the latter. That's about all. Peace out.